Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Pro Strings Violin School. I'm Henriette, and I think from what I can see on the list of attendees, we all know each other already. So, very warm welcome, and thank you all so much for being a member of Henriette's Violin Club. And I'm just absolutely delighted that so many of you have taken on this new aspect of my life on YouTube, and it's just lovely to see you all here. Now, Tom Bell, welcome. I have seen that you have already written hello from Nova Scotia. You know the routine here. I usually say to people, just write where you are. It's very nice for yourselves and for me as well to see where everyone is. So let's write down where you are, and that gives you a little bit of practice with this chat box as well. So I want you to be familiar with this chat box because I want you to feel free and ask any violin related questions that you might have. So hello, Angie from Dorchester in Dorset. Angie and I know each other very well as well. So it's lovely to see you here. So who's next? Serendipity and I. Hello from London, England. Welcome. We haven't met for a long time, but I've noticed that you've been watching my video. So it's lovely to see you here. And I'm very eager to get to know you better and to know about your playing. Rob Gregor Richard is in Denmark. Hello, Rob. Welcome to this live class. It's lovely to see you here. And it's usually quite an international audience. So is there anyone else from different countries or from the UK? Well, I suppose I need to introduce myself as well, isn't it? I'm going to just say that to you rather than write it in the chat box. I'm in Norfolk, in Norwich, in the UK, and that is where I live. So once we've introduced each other, let's go ahead and let's get started. If someone has a violin-related question, do go ahead. Bear in mind that members of Henriette's Violin Club can ask the questions, but this video will be open to the general public, and it will stay on the YouTube channel for everyone to watch. So if you're not here but watching this at a later stage, welcome to you as well. Lovely to see that this video is being used. Go ahead. Who's got the first question? Angie. That is very good. Did you break the ice, Angie? And Angie's question is, what would be a good daily practice schedule for an intermediate player to improve their technique? Now, that is a very, very good question. One that many people ask me, funnily enough, because we always think that we practice too little, isn't it? And I can remember when I asked the same question to my conservatoire teacher: how long should I be practicing for every day? I was at a music college, obviously, then, and he said, practice at least 6 hours a day. And I tried that for a bit, and that gave me really, really bad shoulder pain. So that is the one restricting factor, is how much can your body take? Because playing the violin and practicing it well is hard on the body. And you might find that you're much better off, as in my case, to practice a lot less and see a lot more from the world, which I could use for my musical expression in my pieces. Because I had more life experience and I knew about exhibitions and about other forms of art and that sort of thing. But for an intermediate player to make good progress depends on the time in the day you've got, how many other commitments you've got. I would say if you can do half an hour a day, every day, really intense practice, so that in the meantime, while you practice, you don't get distracted by phone calls, Facebook, the telephone ringing, making your shopping lists and all sorts of other things that would distract me, then you're doing great. And as your repertoire expands, like if you're an intermediate player and you just make that transition to go into the higher technique where you are about, Angie, then you might increase your practice a little bit, because you will find that you, apart from your pieces book where you practice your performance pieces, you might have scales, and you might have studies, and you might have some position playing, and then you might later on play a proper sonata and a proper concerto. And especially when you get to the more advanced stages in your playing, you want to have a broad package of repertoire that you play. So you don't always play the same type of music, but you have a wide array of things on the go. So my more advanced pupils will have a scale book, they will have a position book, they will have a study book, they will have a concerto that they're working on, they will have a a sonata that they're playing on, and they will play solo bar. So that's 6 different categories already that they're playing on. You can't fit that in half an hour. So then as you progress, your practice schedule will increase, obviously. And what I usually say to my more beginner players is, think about all the things that we play in your lesson and practice everything at least 3 times. Now, when a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old practices their pieces 3 times in a row every day, you can imagine how much progress they would make. So you being an adult, higher intermediate player, I should think that half an hour, 40 minutes, up to an hour some days. It just depends as well how much you enjoy the pieces that you're playing at that time as well. But half an hour to an hour, let's say, as my final answer. Like I said, if you are pressed for time and you're in a rush to practice your pieces, you might as well stop for that day and then carry on tomorrow when you've got a bit more time, or your head is slightly emptier, or you have a bit more sort of stillness of mind. And that is something else that I always say is, for good violin practice, you have to have some sort of quiet moment in your life as well. And you might, just as some people do before bedtime, just wind down your activities in the same way before your violin practice, so that you open up your brain and you're not sort of thinking of all these things that you want to do in one go. So give me a moment to read the next question. Annika has said, Mr. Miller, the bridge is a middle from fishtail and fingerboard. Okay. This is a question about the placement of the bridge, and I had somebody else in my practice this week who'd been tuning her violin and the bridge had moved. So the question is, where on the violin should your bridge be? And that is a very good question, because it happens to quite a few people that the bridge moves when you tune your violin, especially when you tune with the big pegs, this end. And it might well be wise to point out, first of all, that none of these parts of the violin, the bridge is never glued on in the same place. So it can start to walk about a little bit. And that's a good thing, because the violin is a living thing. It responds to changes in atmospheric pressure. So it's good that it can move a little bit. Now, where should it be? First of all, you should see the angle. Now, it's quite nice because my bridge is not at an ideal angle, because you can perhaps see that it's angled slightly forwards. I'll see if I can find a background, maybe here against the black of my chair. Can you see that? The bridge is angled slightly forwards. Now, if you look at the back of a bridge here, the back side, it should be perpendicular to the belly of the violin. So I will move it now, and then you can see the difference, hopefully. This is not something that you should try at home, by the way, because there is a sincere risk of breaking the bridge when you do that. So what I've done now is I've pulled it back a little bit. Where can you see it? Can you see it like that? It's slightly straighter, but it's not yet straight enough. I have to do that anyway. That is a tight fit. Let's see. Can you see it's a bit more upright? So there should be a straight angle between the back of the bridge and the belly of your violin right here. But your bridge should be exactly, can you see these little indents? exactly level with the indents. So this side and at this side as well. Okay, and that is where a bridge should be. So that is moving it further forward and further backwards, exactly level with the little indents. And then it should also be, if you look this way, it should also be sideways, so that this side next to the G string here and next to the E string here should be in the middle of the fingerboard. So it may be, if that is slightly wonky, if I pull my bridge this way a little bit, then this wouldn't be the same distance, wouldn't it? So that is about where it fits lengthwise with the strings. So check your strings here in relation to the fingerboard. It should be in the middle, and then forwards and backwards, it should be just level with those little indents. Now, you might find that if you change the placement of your bridge, your violin sounds very different. And that is to do with the placement of the sound post inside your violin. You might find that when if you're able to look inside your violin, you can see there's a little wooden post. Let me see if I've got a spare one in my violin case, and I can show you what it looks like. So I always carry on, except for today. No. Is it in my pen pot, maybe? No, I haven't got it. It's a small wooden post about this big, really tiny, about 0.5 centimeter in diameter, and it's placed underneath the foot of this bridge, this outer foot on the G string end, and that transfers most of the vibrations of the bridge into the violin. Now, if you're moving your bridge frequently, again, that sound post is not glued in, so it may be that the sound post walks about a little bit on the inside of your violin. If your violin sounds very different if you've moved the bridge, then take it to a violin maker who can just check if that sound post, I'm just seeing if it might be possible for you to see it. I'm not sure. You can just glance inside my F-holes of my violin. No, you can use on this side. I can just about see it when I look through this F-hole. I can see this end of the bridge. And you can have a look at your own violin and see if you can see it where the sound post is. So if you feel that the sound of your violin is changing quite considerably, then you might have to have your sound post checked out to see if it's still in the same place. Okay. I hope that's answered your question, Annika. Tom Bell, next question. Can you recommend any good books for beginners? I've been reading Simon Fisher, The Basics, and warming up. They're a bit advanced for me at this time. That is a very good question, Tom Bell, because I think I can't think of there being something like that. Now, I make a note here. What exactly are you looking for a book for beginners? I know Basics, and it's a very, very good book, but it's the basics of advanced violin playing, isn't it? And I totally agree with you that it is maybe not the things that beginner violinists find very useful, because you have to have a certain progression on your instrument before that all makes sense. No, I'm sorry. I have a pass. Now, I've just now I'm finishing writing a book for Howland Publications, and I was thinking about another chapter maybe for another book. So here's a good suggestion, because I can't think of one. Let me know if any of you knows one that is already in existence, but sorry, I have to fess up. I don't know that there is one specifically for beginners. Angie, at what level do you suggest introducing etudes to your daily practice, and which ones do you recommend? I've already indicated that upper intermediate level is the right time. Etudes are pieces of music that have a specific technical issue at their core, which you can explore in that etude, and which you can then, once you've learned the etude, can use in all kinds of other repertoire. Usually etudes are written with a view to a certain issue in a certain concerto, like a certain issue in the Beethoven concerto or in the Tchaikovsky violin concerto, you see. So there are specific technical issues that are being addressed in an etude. But you could argue that if you play position work, like you learn the second position, they are called etudes as well, and they're also addressing a technical issue. But I suspect that's not quite the kind of etudes that you are aiming at here. But in a way, you're already playing etudes because you're playing a technical book that addresses the technical issue of the second position. Rob, in the 30-day challenge, can the pinky line on the left hand be above the real pinky line? I have small hands and rather short arms. I can't reach further on the fingerboard with good tennis ball. Can the pinky line on the left hand be above the real pinky line? I'm trying to understand what you mean. Can the pinky line on the left hand be above the real pinky line? If I'm understanding you correctly, and you can come back to this question if I'm totally off kilter with my answer. Can the pinky line be above? I have a feeling that you imagine that this be higher than, is this what you mean? So your pinky is higher than the level of the E string. I have a feeling that this is what you might mean. Yes, of course it can be. And especially if you have small hands, what you can do to reach that pinky more easily is to bring your elbow under. And you can see that it gives me a more generous way to play my pinky on the string. Yes, I'm reading your last note there. In the video, you talk about a line. In the videos, now I haven't got the exact same, no lower. Okay, should it be below? In most of the videos, I talk about a finger line which is here. There, can you see that? And that should be level with the E string here. Now your pinky, as a result of this line of knuckles being level with the strings, will also be higher. And you say no lower. So it can be slightly lower, but then if this is what you mean, come back to me again, and then I'll I'll answer your question in better detail if I possibly can. So in an ideal world, yes, this one. Is that this one? I think you mean that one. That line shouldn't really be lower, because what happens, so we're talking about the finger line here. This line should be level with the E string as you have your hand up. So can I show you? Look, there it is. Can you see that? That finger line is level with the E string. If I lower it, it means that less of my fingers will stick up above the fingerboard, and I can't really work my fingers hard enough, because fingers should fall from their base joint, which is here. So if this is higher, my fingers can really fall from above on the strings. If this is lower, you're more likely to shove the fingers over the strings rather than let them fall from above. And that is a big difference. And that when your fingers are higher up, it allows you to play in a more articulated way, because you can clatter your fingers onto the strings much more. But it also allows you for more fast playing. Whereas if you're here, you cannot really direct your fingers as well, and there can be no speed in your fingers eventually. I mean, when you're a beginner, I would always encourage everyone to play slowly, but we want to set you up so that in future you can learn to play fast. And that is because this whole line of knuckles is level with the strings. Yes, some people have larger hands than others, and both large hands and small hands have their own individual difficulties. And one thing that you can do with particularly small hands is to think about your left elbow and to bring it under more. So whereas another person with sort of average size hands might play with their elbow here, people with smaller hands might be more underneath. And that takes a while to get used to, because there isn't really anything in everyday life where you do that, is there? So that will really be harder on the shoulder, but you get used to that. I'm hoping that answers your question. Let me know if there's anything else that is related to this. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? Let me see if there was a question that somebody's asked me the other day, and this is a lady that I teach as well, and she has, when she first started off playing the violin, she started on a very cheap violin and a very cheap bow, and she had real difficulty in tracking the bow parallel to the bridge. And you may recognize that. It happens to a lot of people when the bow just flails across the strings and it doesn't actually track in a straight line. And she said, what do I do? And we started adding more rosin, and that didn't help. Well, it helped a little bit. And then we experimented with loosening the bow and tightening the bow more. And that also helped to an extent. And then eventually she just bought a much better bow, and the tracking was there from the word go. So if this is, if you're experiencing a similar thing, that might well be the thing for you as well. Nowadays, I say to everyone in all my videos, please, please, please don't buy the cheapest stuff that you can buy on Amazon, because it's not going to work in the long term for good progress. Now, I know you guys are all really into your violin playing and you really want to achieve the best, so that is what I can recommend. Oh, Robbie, here's another good question. Do I plan any video to show the different bow strokes for twinkle? Not at the moment, but I'll make a note on my to-do videos. I've got a whole list of YouTube video ideas because people ask me these sometimes. Bow strokes for twinkle. It is a very good technique, and to play many different bow strokes. And I'll give you a couple of examples of bow strokes that you can explore for yourself on twinkle or on any other thing that you play, any scales that you play. Sorry, my highlighter is not working, so you're going to get a funky color. This is a good bow stroke, and this one goes long, short, short, long, short, short. So you might go, let me think how you might play twinkle on that. I can't remember now if this is in your book. So I play. This is how you might, I'll hold this up again, how you might play this bow stroke on twinkle. If twinkle is not your thing and you play a D major scale, you might play it like this. And so on. And any other tune that you play, you might try and play like that. Then there is, of course, this one. And this one, I always call this the peanut butter sandwich one. Peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter sandwich. You see, that is a very good bow stroke to learn as well. Let me write that here. You see, a peanut butter sandwich. See if I can leave this in my screen, more or less, while I play that for you. No, that doesn't say upright. But you can imagine you can play that on any scale as well. And then there is this one. This one in my book hasn't really got a name, and this one goes da 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 da. It's usually the young children that give these things their names, but I haven't thought of one here. So you can use that one. And then this is a favorite of mine as well. And this one one's called Fatter Than a Caterpillar, Fatter Than a Caterpillar. And this is played with very short bows in the middle of your bow. And that is a very useful exercise as well to do this last bowing technique, because it develops bow grip on the strings. So you should be fairly light with the bow on the strings, but you practice getting the feel for the grip of the bow. So yes, thanks for that suggestion. I might think about that. It's on my list. Now, there are a few other things on my list, other things that people have suggested in the last class, and people said, would you be able to do a third position video for people who are scared to come away from the first position? And I'm actually loving that idea. So if the person who asked me that is here today, that is on my next list. But as you probably have noticed from the All for Strings violin course, that will go on for a bit. It's hugely popular, so if you haven't yet started it, you might consider it. Now let me have a look at the next question. Serendipity. In regards to sight reading, is there anything in particular I can do to get better, or is it just something that gets better with time? Yes, that gets better with time. That is one aspect of it. The more different pieces you learn to play and the more confidence you gain in learning new pieces, that's when sight reading gets better. But a golden rule in sight reading is do it every day. So what might be good is to pick a piece in a book that's much easier than the level at which you're playing currently. I have no idea what level of playing you are at. But sight reading should always be much easier than where your actual level is. So if your normal playing level is here, pick a sight reading practice that is much easier. And then just go ahead and practice some sight reading every single day. Now, there are some very good sight reading books for the associated board, and they are called, and I'm going to write that into the chat box, Improve Your Sight Reading, obviously for violin, by Paul Harris. Oh, hang on, sorry, I typed it and nothing is coming up. Improve Your Sight Reading by Paul Harris. And that is a graded sight reading method. There is also specimen tests for sight reading by Paul Harris, and those you practice after you've done the book. So if you get grade 1, you learn all the pieces in that book, makes you very good at practicing at sight reading, because you have lots of practice, and then you do the specimen test to see how you get on. But as a good rule of thumb, you may ask, if you have a teacher, to get a new piece to play every single week, because if you change your pieces frequently, you automatically get better at sight reading as well. And the better you are at sight reading, the easier you pick up new pieces. So this is a very nice sort of rolling spiral. You get better at sight reading, so you learn new pieces better. If you learn new pieces better, you get better at sight reading. But go ahead and check that out. Improve Your Sight Reading by Paul Harris. What else is there? Is it true that it can take up to 2 years to fully master a good vibrato? And at what stage after learning arm vibrato can you start learning wrist and then finger vibrato? Useful question, Angie. Thank you. Vibrato is an interesting aspect of the technique, because you all know that vibrato is that shaking of the hand, don't you? That violinists do. Vibrato comes when it comes, and it comes when your muscle tone is relaxed enough to allow it to move while you keep your fingertip on the string. So you can see it right here already. I have to be relaxed enough with my finger to be able to move it, even though my fingertip is going to stay on the string, you see. So it depends on your muscle tone, and some people are naturally much more flexible than others. I'm one of those people who's totally stiff, whereas there are other people that are those snake people. They put their leg into their neck straight away, and I could never ever dream of that. So there are gradations of how flexible people's muscles naturally are, and for those people, including me, that are generally stiffer, it takes longer to learn vibrato. So I can't really put a figure on it, and I can't really say how long it will take or when you can introduce other types of vibrato. But the reason why I teach arm vibrato first is that it is the large muscle groups. The arm vibrato starts with the whole forearm. And when you learn to control larger muscle groups first, it is easier to then learn smaller muscle groups like a wrist vibrato, or even smaller muscle groups like a finger vibrato. If you did it the other way around and you learned finger vibrato first, it would be very hard, because of the fine motor movements that are already developed in your fingers, to then go on to the wrist vibrato and then go on to the arm vibrato. So we learn it the other way around. Arm vibrato first, then wrist, then fingers. And I can start people on a wrist vibrato when the arm vibrato is completely developed, so that you can determine to let it go faster, a faster arm vibrato or a slower arm vibrato, and that you can alter the speed so that it becomes more expressive. And that's when you've got that kind of control, that's when you can learn a type of vibrato that uses smaller muscles. So after you can do that with your arm vibrato, slow it down and speed it up, then you can learn wrist vibrato, speed it up or slow it down, and then you can learn the finger vibrato. Enika asks, what kind of a music stand do you have? And have you got the rehabilitation practice for not having injury and for being without tension in your body for playing? I have got all kinds of music stands. You can just see one at the back of my screen, which is like a metal foldy one. Now I'll show you a little trick that I have done, because that I really, really like. Because you've got these orchestral music stands, don't you? And they've got a really nice wide base. Now this thing is a separate thing. You can buy it on Amazon. And it's just a little thingy that you put on the bottom of your music stand. Come to think of it, I shall put this in my Amazon shop so that you can look at it. I'll put a link to it there. It's not currently there, I don't think. And this makes my music stand a lot wider here at the bottom. So I can have my study book and my scale book and my concerto and my solo Bach. All that repertoire can go on here. Now, you have to have a fairly sturdy one. So again, steer clear of the absolute cheapest one, because it will fall over forwards or backwards, or it might just drop down to the ground and it's not so good. The big advantage of having a music stand like this, Now, this is a super tall one, as you can see. It's got lots of extensions because I'm quite tall, and I teach some teenage boys who are about this much taller than I am, and it goes right up to 2 meters. And for very tall people, that is really good because tall people look down on their music quite a lot. And if you can have a music stand, I don't know if you're very tall or not, a music stand that is too low is, like you already indicated, detrimental to your posture. I've also got another music stand, and I'll show you this one. And you can see the All for Strings book is on there because I've been recording videos this morning. It's got light, can you see that? And it has got a much wider base here, so more books fit on it. And this is also a lovely thing. You can buy it separately. This is from the brand Kinsman. I don't get sponsorship or anything. And you can attach it to your music stand, and you can keep all your junk here. So I have got, maybe you can see it, a whole series of pencils and tissues, and my metronome is sometimes on here as well. So there's a fully kitted out music stand in my book. I hope that helps you. So being able to stand up really tall is very important for good violin playing. What else was your question? Not having an injury and not be without tension while you play. Playing the violin like my teacher at my conservatoire wanted me to do didn't suit my body. It just didn't work. So you have to find enough breaks in your practice that the body can do it. It's like ballet dancers or sports people. There is a limit to the amount of practice that you can do, amount of training that you can do, if you don't want to end up with all sorts of injuries. So there is a fine balance to where the body can still say, yes, I'm with you, and where your musical development says, I want to do more because I need to learn this concerto. So yeah, you have to be very, very careful to do that. Did you know, by the way, that when big soloists play a whole violin concerto, which consists of 3 movements, play that on a stage with a professional orchestra, it is the same sort of muscular involvement and energy involvement as taking part in an Olympic marathon. That's quite staggering, isn't it? So this is top sport, and you mustn't take it lightly how much the effect is on the body. So good point to raise that, Annika. Yes, thank you. Yes, I see very good things. Wow. Next question. I'm just reading out the text box. At what level would you set your music stand at? Top of music at eye level? Love that extension of the music stand. Yes, well, at the center of the page at eye level. Of course, if your piece is very small and it's this bit, then that should be at the eye level. But if you play a whole page, pin the center of your page at eye level so that you can stand up straight. You might even raise it a little bit above that, but try not to drop it below that, because you can see your shoulders will come forward if you have it too low. The extension is nice. Yeah, I love that extension of my music stand. It's just so handy. I use it every time. I run marathons. That is amazing. Respect to you if you run marathons. And you know then, if you run a marathon, how careful you have to be, because if you're training for a marathon, not that I know anything about running marathons, I've got no experience, but I've got friends who do run marathons as well, and you have to be ever so careful and really time your training in such a way that you're not injured by the time the marathon is. So if you know how to run a marathon, you know how to practice the violin well. Always be careful. It's all about the pacing. And that is when you run the marathon, I guess, as well. And it's also when you play a piece of music that is sort of longish for your level of playing. And this goes for beginners as well as for intermediate and advanced people, while you play your pieces, you've got to pace yourself as well, and not spend all your energy on the first couple of bars. Leave something to explore in the middle of and the end of your piece. And a very good way of learning your pieces, because everyone that starts a piece at the beginning gets more tired towards the end, isn't it? So in order to be at the same level throughout your piece, you've got to know the end comparatively better, because you're more tired when you're playing at the end. So a good strategy that professional violinists use is to start learning each piece at the end, because we always start at the beginning, don't we? And we always are fresh when we start at the beginning. So every single practice, we're fresher learning the beginning. If you turn that whole thing upside down and you identify a section of your music some way from the end, and you always start there, you comparatively get better at playing the endings of pieces. And that's just what you need for a good performance. It's all about the pacing. I'm going back to my chat box now. Violin is a marathon from instruments. Yes, absolutely. Do you play other instruments? If yes, how do you manage to practice them? Picking some ideas. Yes, I started learning as a child. I started to learn recorders. So all kinds of recorders, treble recorder and alto recorder, I think. This is such a long time ago. So I don't play those anymore. I play the piano a little bit, very badly as well. And I have to be very, very meticulous about, very disciplined about learning and practicing. Something else that I really enjoy, it's nothing to do with music, but it helps me as a teacher quite a lot, is I'm also learning Chinese. I'm absolutely rubbish at Chinese, and I find it very difficult to motivate myself to get started. Once I get started, I can't stop. It's the same probably for you guys when you play the violin. So I have to be extremely disciplined and say to myself, on Monday and on Tuesday and on Friday, at a certain time, I am doing my Chinese. And this might work for you on the violin as well. You have to be very disciplined, because you know, and you can be confident that once you get it started, you get motivated and inspired and you love what you do. And then it's easier, isn't it? But it's that getting going, which is so difficult. So I do that with my Chinese, and I forget lots of things as well. So I have every sympathy for my learners who play the violin. Because you have to keep coming back to things all the time, isn't it? And it's that gratification when you think, oh, I've done this 5 times now, and finally I got it, which is really nice. But it comes from that discipline when you suddenly grasp things, isn't it? Angie, here's another question, a cheeky question. How young? What got you interested? How young was I when I first played the violin, and what got me interested in the violin? Now, I was interested in the violin from quite a young age, but my parents didn't, for some reason or another, I don't know, didn't let me play the violin. I knew that we had a thing in our loft, and at some point when I was 15 or so, I said to my mum, I can clearly remember that day, right, this day I'm going to go up into the loft and I'm going to get the violin down, because my granddad used to play the violin and my mum used to play the violin as well. So I knew we had the violin there. And I got it down and I started learning it on my own, like you guys, so I totally sympathize on how difficult that is. And I got quite a long way. And I had to wait until the next summer holiday when I was 16 and I could get a summer job to pay for my lessons. And then I had to start all over again with my teacher, because I had some built-in bad habits, shall we say. But then I picked it up really, really quickly. And because I was motivated to learn, it went really, really fast. And looking back at it now, I wished I had some videos of my playing in the early days, because 4 years later I was at a music college. So that was really weird. But no, I didn't start very young. And I guess learning to play as an adult has made me a much better teacher because I can understand much better the difficulties that people come across. Whereas if I'd learned it from 4 years old, who knows? I might have been a much better player, but didn't understand quite so well how things work when you learn to play the violin. So I don't know. So some pros and cons to starting earlier or later. Hiding to play the violin. Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess it's helped me being a better teacher, and definitely my Chinese learning hopefully helps me being a better teacher, because I just totally get it when people forget things. You learn something and you forget it, and that helps a lot being a teacher. Let me put it that way. But I learn every day still from you guys, all my lovely pupils, because you ask such relevant questions. And again today, you're asking all the right questions, and that is just really lovely. So I think you can tell that I love what I do, and it's you that inspire me, and lots of young people achieving wonderful things that inspire me to keep going. And it's just lovely to meet all of you from all over the world. And I've just got a new pupil who lives in the Caribbean, and she wants to be a jazz violinist. She's about 15 years old, and she's coming to me online for classical violin lessons because she has auditioned for a music college somewhere else in the world to do jazz violin, and they've said you can do jazz violin, you can come here if you learn to play the violin properly first. So I think that's a really interesting story. And that is what I love about my work, because it's got so many different aspects. Because at the same time, I'm preparing this local boy here who is Czech but lives in the UK for an audition at the Prague Conservatoire. And that is very highbrow. And it's just something completely different. So it's very varied. Let me see. Angie, what level and Paganini's caprices and Bach sonatas and partitas? That is post grade 8, way beyond grade 8. Although one of the Bach partitas, partita number 3, the first movement, is set for grade 8 at the moment. So that is a lovely, lovely sonata. Actually, there's one as well. There's the Gigue, and that's set for grade 7. And it's Gigue. I think it's on the last page of the Birnreiter Bach solo sonata. So grade 7, 8, but then there's lots in the partitas that are way, way beyond. So this Czech boy that I was talking about earlier, he's playing the E minor sonata, and that is more conservatoire entry level. And the Paganini caprices are a level up from there as well. And they are properly difficult pieces, but wonderful, wonderful to play. Can't wait a good 3 years to go, huh? Well, you are progressing all the time, aren't you? And I think I can be open and honest that this person here who's in my chat box here, making this joke about a few years to go, she took grade 3 at Christmas and is now preparing for grade 5. So there's somebody here with some momentum. All credit to you, Angie. Well done. And this is now out in the open. Sorry about that. Shall we see if there is another question from any of you, or have we answered all the pressing things? Oh, okay. There is another question that somebody asked a little earlier, is why did you choose to play the violin? I forgot what that is. The story that I told you, that we had the violin in the loft, was what made me want to play the violin. Actually, what got me interested in playing the violin. But what really made me want to do it as well is that I thought it was super cool, because my violin teacher lived in the next village. Super cool to have my violin on my back, and I grew up in the Netherlands, so we were cycling everywhere, and to cycle with that thing on my back, that's really what got me into it. I loved that, and I thought it was just super cool to be cycling with that thing. Still, I think that, because I do a lot of cycling with my violin still, and there's even video on my YouTube channel about cycling with the violin. And talking about that, when I made this video, because I got a new bike and I was just so interested in how I was going to transport my violin on that bike, I made a video about it. And in response to that video, I got a really nice email from an American lady who said, I'm a world traveler, I'm a trained violinist. And she said, I'm going to cycle in Ireland, and can you give me some tips about cycling with a violin, which resulted in an interview also on my YouTube channel about that trip and how she would organize fixing the violin to the bike and whether to take her good violin or whether to take a crappy violin. And she's actually still in Ireland right now. And she's had rain and hail and storm and really hot weather, and the violin, she's very lucky, I think, that she brought the crappy violin, because it turns out she's also far too tired from all the cycling to do some serious constructive practice in the evenings. And I'm sure that at the end of her trip, we'll have another video to talk about it. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and find the two videos, the video about me and my new bike and the video about Vina planning the trip to Ireland. Really interesting stuff. Okay, someone says, yeah, you cycling video motivated me a lot to cycle with a violin, because here in England, cycling is not that popular. It's very dangerous as well. I mean, I've been hit by cars several times, but it is so useful. And especially when you've got panniers either side, you can stick the violin in one and your books in the other one, and you're nicely balanced. It's really easy to go about it. Do I have any advice on how to travel with a violin by plane? That is a very good question. And there are many, many articles in the Strad magazine. Do you know what that is? The Strad. Oh. Strad is the big violin magazine, worldwide violin magazine, the Strad. Because nowadays it's not so easy to travel with a violin because of the ivory that some violins have on the point of their bows here, this bit here. And ivory, of course, is now protected material, and you cannot board a plane with it, which is a right pain for world-class soloists that travel around the world to play the violin. And they've got world-class instruments as well, and they have usually got very old bows. So that is a real issue, and some people have to leave their violins behind because they're not allowed on the plane because of that tiny bit of ivory, and they have to play on a borrowed instrument, which is really, really difficult, because as violinists, we're lucky that we always play on the same instrument, isn't it? And we get to know the instrument inside out, and we practice our techniques to suit that particular instrument. And I know it's no excuse, because pianists play on different instruments all the time, because you can't take the piano with you. But not being able to take your instrument is a real pain for professional violinists. So I honestly don't know how they do it. I think most have now, some of them may have changed the ivory for a bit of plastic, even on the old ancient historic bows, so that they can travel with it. And some have, because you can't put the violin in a hold of the plane because it gets way too cold. So you have to carry it in your hand luggage. Oh, that reminds me of a nice story as well, which I'll tell you in a moment. And especially cellists, they have to book an extra seat on the plane for the cello. So because you can't take a cello as hand luggage. So that's how they travel. I have got one pupil who used to come to me for lessons whenever he was in the UK, and he was like a traveler, world traveler as well. And so he would hang out in India, then he was in South America, and then he was in Kazakhstan and everywhere. And he just popped the violin into a handbag like that, and the bow as well. And he traveled with it like that because he thought it was just too much hassle to put it in a case. So there are different ways that people use, and he thought that was the most fantastic thing to do it like that. But I guess he didn't have a historic instrument or a Strad or something. Is there anyone else who wants to ask one more question? You're doing great, by the way, asking all these questions. Yeah, Rob, I would also be very afraid to break it. But no, I think I would even rather try to borrow an instrument at my destination rather than risking my violin just in my handbag. Absolutely, Annika. Lots of good questions. So we're going to round up then for today. And I want to say to you, thank you so much, for being a member of Henriette's Violin Club. And if you're watching this and you are on catch up and you're not yet a member, do please consider becoming a member, because you can ask the questions in my live class. Oh, I've got a question for you in a moment. Thank you for all these wonderful questions, and thank you for continually supporting my YouTube channel. My question for you is, I'm planning my next Henriette Goes live class, and I'm thinking about, but this isn't by no means guaranteed, but I'm thinking about the 19th of August. Is this a good date for you guys? 19th of August. Oh, I seem to not be able to write. 2 p.m. You're welcome, Rob. So has anyone got an issue with the 19th of August? For me, it's good, 19th of August. Okay, now, checking. Okay. Okay, that's fair enough, Angie. Angie will be working, but we'll catch up after 5 p.m. As always, you're so lucky to have your holiday now. Okay, well, I'll take that. I'll bear that in mind. And thank you very much for being here today and for asking all these relevant questions. You can't. Okay. All right. Now I'll have a look at my diary again. Now then, lovely to see you all, and you take care. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.